The great crystal chamber floated in space, circling a dying star. Inside, representatives from 47 alien species sat in a wide circle. Their seats rose in layers, creating a massive arena where the most important decisions in the galaxy were made. This was the Galactic Council, and today they would judge humanity. Ambassador Dae-hyun stood alone in the center. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had served Earth for 20 years, and he had seen many challenges. But today felt different. Today felt dangerous around him. The alien council members whispered to each other. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of pure light. Some had scales like reptiles, and others had fur or skin in colors humans had never imagined. They were old species, ancient and powerful. Humanity was young by comparison. Earth had joined the Federation only 35 years ago. High Counselor Vethric rose from his seat. He was a saurian, a lizard-like being with green scales and cold yellow eyes. His voice echoed through the chamber. "We gather here to address a grave matter. A human colony ship destroyed a sacred vessel of the Luminar people. Innocent beings of light were killed because humans were careless and violent." Dae-hyun stepped forward. The colony ship was defending itself from pirates. The Luminar vessel entered the combat zone without warning. It was an accident, a terrible accident. "We have offered compensation and our deepest apologies." "Apologies are not enough," Vethric hissed. "Since humans joined our Federation, there have been 17 incidents. 17 times your species has caused problems. You are too aggressive, too emotional, too unpredictable. You do not belong among civilized species." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Dae-hyun felt his heart sink. He had expected anger, but this felt coordinated. This felt planned. A being made of pure energy floated forward. This was Elder Vane, leader of the Luminar. "My people demand justice. The humans must face consequences for their recklessness." Vethric's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "I propose a vote. Humanity has proven they cannot handle the responsibility of full Federation membership. I move that we silence them. For 50 years, humans will not speak in council meetings. They will not vote on any decisions. They will follow all Federation laws without question. Their military forces will return to their home system and stay there." The chamber exploded with noise. Some species shouted in support. Others protested. Dae-hyun raised his hand. "This is not justice. This is punishment for being different. We made a mistake, yes, but we are willing to make things right. Do not cast us out for one accident. You have had 35 years to prove yourselves," Vethric said coldly. "You have failed. The vote will proceed." One by one, the species voted. Dae-hyun watched as the numbers climbed against humanity. 38 species voted yes. Only 9 voted no. The decision was final. Humanity would be silenced. The chamber grew quiet. Everyone waited to see what Dae-hyun would do. Would he rage? Would he beg? Would he threaten? He did none of those things. Instead, he walked calmly to Earth's seat and removed the emblem of humanity from its place. The metal symbol felt heavy in his hands. He looked up at the council, meeting Vethric's eyes with a steady gaze. Then he bowed once, turned, and walked out. He did not say a word. The silence he left behind was somehow more frightening than any threat. Outside the council chamber, Dae-hyun's assistant Hyejin was waiting. She was a young diplomat with sharp eyes and quick mind. "What happened?" she asked. "They voted to silence us," Dae-hyun said quietly. "Send the message to all human embassies. Begin withdrawal immediately." Hyejin's face went pale. "All of them? Even the trade stations?" "All of them," Dae-hyun confirmed. "And send a secure message to Admiral Mireille. Tell her to begin Protocol Horizon." Protocol Horizon. Hyejin had heard whispers about it but never thought it would be used. It was humanity's backup plan, created in secret years ago when Earth's leaders realized the Federation might turn against them one day. Across the galaxy, human embassies began closing. Human traders packed their goods and departed. Human scientists ended their research partnerships. Human soldiers left Federation military bases. It all happened within 48 hours, smooth and organized. No protests, no complaints, just quiet, methodical withdrawal. At the edges of human space, Admiral Mireille received the message aboard her flagship, the Indomitable. She was a veteran of many battles, with scars on her face and fire in her eyes. She read the message twice, then looked up at her bridge crew. "All ships return to Sol system," she ordered. "Maximum speed, and activate the construction protocols. We have work to do." Her first officer, a young man named Jemin, looked confused. "Admiral, if we leave our positions, who will protect the trade routes?" Mirai smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "That is no longer our problem. The Council wanted us gone. They will learn to live without us." Back in the Council chamber, Vethric was celebrating. "Finally, we are free of the human problem," he announced to the other counselors. They will spend 50 years in isolation, thinking about their mistakes. Perhaps it will teach them humility. But Counselor Tassara, an insect-like being from the Hive Collective, was not celebrating. She had voted against the silencing. "I fear we have made a terrible mistake," she said quietly. "Nonsense," Vethric scoffed. "Humans are dangerous, but they are not stupid. They will accept their punishment and return when their time is served." Tassara watched the empty space where Daehyun had stood. "That is what worries me. They accepted it too easily. Humans do not surrender without a fight, unless they are planning something else." In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to notice changes. Small things at first. Trade shipments that humans used to handle were delayed. Space stations that humans maintained started having technical problems. Pirates that humans used to chase away became bolder. But these were minor issues. Most species barely noticed. They were too busy congratulating themselves for putting the troublesome humans in their place. In Sol System, behind closed borders, humanity was not sitting idle. Admiral Mirai stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked at the construction reports. What she saw made her smile. The shipyards around Mars were working at full capacity. The research stations on Europa were making breakthroughs. And in the space between Jupiter and Saturn, something massive was taking shape. "How long until the helix is operational?" she asked. Dr. Jiwan, the head scientist, checked her data. 3 years if we maintain current pace. Maybe 2 if we push harder. "Push harder," Mirai said. "The Council thinks we are hiding in shame. Let them think that. When we emerge, they will see what humanity can accomplish when the galaxy turns its back on us." Ambassador Daehyun returned to Earth and met with the world leaders. "They wanted us silent," he told them. "So we will be silent. But silence does not mean weakness. Silence means we stop wasting energy on words and start building our future." The leaders agreed. Resources were redirected. Scientists who had been working with alien partners now focused on purely human projects. Military forces that had been spread across the galaxy now concentrated on defending Earth and its colonies. And in the darkness of space, far from any inhabited worlds, Commander Seokjin was building something else. His silent service, a network of spies and intelligence agents, did not come home. They stayed in place, watching and listening. The Council had silenced humanity's voice, but they could not silence humanity's eyes and ears. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would show them the consequences of that choice, not with rage or revenge, but with something far more powerful. Absolute focus on becoming stronger, smarter, and more advanced than any species had ever imagined possible. The Council wanted silence. Humanity would give them silence, and in that silence they would build something that would make the entire galaxy tremble. 5 years passed since the Council silenced humanity. In that time, the galaxy changed in ways both obvious and subtle. At first, most species barely noticed the absence of humans. The trade routes still functioned. Ships still traveled between worlds. Life continued as it always had, but slowly, cracks began to appear. The first sign came from the outer trade routes. Ships that used to arrive on time were now delayed by days or weeks. Pirates, who had been quiet for years, suddenly became bold again. They attacked merchant vessels with impunity. The Council fleet tried to respond, but they were spread too thin. They had never realized how much ground the human patrol ships used to cover. Space stations began reporting technical failures. Systems that had run smoothly for decades suddenly malfunctioned. It took months before someone realized that human engineers had been quietly maintaining much of the infrastructure. Now those engineers were gone and nobody else knew how to fix the problems. High Counselor Vethric dismissed these concerns. Minor inconveniences, he called them. The other species will adapt. We do not need humans to maintain our civilization. But Counselor Tassara was not convinced. She requested permission to send observers to human space. We should know what they are doing, she argued. Silence can hide many things. Vethric reluctantly agreed. 3 scout ships were dispatched to the borders of Sol System. They were instructed to observe from a distance and report back. 2 of the ships never returned. The third came back with a terrified crew. The captain of that ship, a luminar named Reth, reported what he had seen. There are structures, he said, his voice shaking. Massive structures in the outer planets of Sol system. Things that were not there 5 years ago. We tried to scan them, but our instruments could not penetrate their shields. When we moved closer, human ships appeared from nowhere and escorted us out. They did not threaten us. They did not speak to us. They just watched. The council chamber erupted in debate. What were the humans building? Why were their ships able to appear without being detected? And most troubling of all, where were the other 2 scout ships? Commander Seokjin smiled when he heard about the scout ships. He was sitting in a hidden facility on a remote asteroid, monitoring communications across the galaxy. His silent service had grown into the most effective intelligence network in known space. The council thought humans were isolated, but Seokjin's agents were everywhere, listening to every conversation, reading every report. They are starting to worry, he told his deputy. Good. Fear is more useful than anger. In Sol system, the transformation of human civilization was nearly complete. Dr. Jiwon stood before a massive viewing window, looking at the helix. It was the largest structure humans had ever built, a lattice of metal and energy collectors that wrapped around the sun like a giant cage. It harvested solar energy with incredible efficiency, providing more power than Earth had ever dreamed possible. We are ahead of schedule, she reported to Admiral Mirai. The helix will be fully operational in 6 months. When it activates, we will have enough energy to power everything we are building. Mirai nodded. And the Ghost Fleet? Production is on track. We have completed 200 ships so far. Each one is equipped with quantum phase technology. They can exist partially outside normal space, making them almost impossible to detect until they choose to reveal themselves. And the weapon systems? Dr. G1 hesitated. They exceed anything the Council possesses. The Helios Lance can cut through a dreadnought's shields in seconds. The quantum torpedoes can phase through armor before detonating inside the target. Admiral, if we ever use these weapons in combat, it will not be a battle. It will be a massacre. Let us hope we never need to use them, Mirai said quietly. But if we do, the galaxy will learn why they should have left us alone. On Earth, Ambassador Daehyun met with world leaders to discuss the next phase of their plan. The Council is becoming nervous, he told them. They know we are building something, but they do not know what. That uncertainty is our greatest weapon right now. Should we send them a message? One leader asked. Let them know we are not planning to attack? Daehyun shook his head. No, they wanted our silence. We will give them silence. Let them imagine the worst. When people are afraid, they make mistakes. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, Hyejin sat quietly in the observers section. She had been assigned to attend every council meeting, but the rules of the silencing prevented her from speaking. She could only watch and take notes. At first, the other counselors had ignored her, but over time her presence became unsettling. She sat there day after day writing down everything they said, watching, remembering. Some counselors began to avoid looking in her direction. Others whispered that it felt like being judged. Tassara understood the feeling. It is unnerving, she admitted to a colleague. She says nothing, but her silence speaks volumes. It is like she knows something we do not. Then came the real crisis. A new species appeared at the edges of council space. They called themselves Reavers, and they came in enormous numbers. Their ships were crude compared to council technology, but they attacked in massive swarms that overwhelmed defensive systems through sheer numbers. The council fleet engaged them at a location called the Talon Nebula. It was a disaster. The Reavers fought with desperate fury, throwing ship after ship at the council forces. They did not care about losses. They just kept coming. By the end of the battle, the council had lost 40% of its fleet. Panic spread through the Federation. The council had not faced a real military threat in 200 years. Their ships were designed for precision and efficiency, not brutal combat. Their strategies were defensive, built on the assumption that wars could be avoided through diplomacy and overwhelming technological superiority. But the Reavers did not care about diplomacy. They needed resources, and they would take them by force. Vethric called an emergency session. We must increase military production immediately. All available resources must be directed to rebuilding the fleet. Tassara stood up. We should ask the humans for help. The chamber fell silent. Vethric's eyes narrowed. Absolutely not. We will not beg the humans for assistance. They are being punished for their recklessness. We will handle this threat ourselves, even if it costs us millions of lives, Tassara challenged. We survived before humans joined the Federation, Vethric said coldly. We will survive after they are gone. But as the weeks passed, the situation grew worse. The Reavers captured 3 more Council worlds. Billions of civilians were displaced. Refugee ships flooded into the inner systems, straining resources. The Council fleet was fighting a losing battle. Finally, Tassara took matters into her own hands. She sent a secret delegation to the border of Sol system. They carried a simple message: the Federation needs help. Will humanity answer? The delegation was met by human border patrol ships. They were escorted to a neutral station where Admiral Mirai was waiting. The Admiral was older now, with more gray in her hair and more scars on her face. But her eyes were as sharp as ever. Counselor Tassara, Mirai said, her voice neutral. To what do we owe this visit? Tassara bowed her head. The Federation is under attack. We are losing. We need your help. You need our help? Mirai repeated. 5 years ago you voted to silence us. You called us dangerous and reckless. You said we did not belong among civilized species. Now you want us to save you? I voted against the silencing, Tassara said desperately. I tried to stop it. Please, whatever anger you feel toward the Council, innocent people are dying. Children, families, they had nothing to do with what happened to your people. Mirai studied her for a long moment. Then she gestured to a view screen. Come, let me show you what humanity has been doing during our silence. The screen activated, showing images of Sol system. Tassara gasped. The helix was visible, glowing with captured solar energy. Dozens of massive shipyards orbited Mars. The moon was covered in weapon installations. And in the space between the planets, hundreds of ships hung in formation, their hulls gleaming with strange technology. This is what happens when you give humans time and motivation, Mirai said quietly. We built all of this in 5 years. Our ghost fleet is ready. Our weapons can destroy anything the galaxy has ever seen. We have become exactly what the Council feared we would become. Tassara felt her hope dying. Then you will let us perish? I did not say that, Mirai replied. But if humanity is to help, there will be conditions. We will not beg to be allowed back into the Federation. If you want our help, you will come to us with proper respect and proper compensation for what was done to us. What do you want? Tassara asked. Mirai handed her a datapad. These are our terms. Take them to the Council. They have 48 hours to decide. After that, humanity will make its own plans for the future with or without the Federation. Tassara looked at the terms and felt her blood run cold. Humanity was not asking for help. They were demanding everything. And the terrible truth was, the Council had no choice but to give it to them. Counselor Tassara returned to the Council chamber with humanity's terms. The document sat on the central podium like a bomb waiting to explode. High Counselor Vethric read it 3 times, his scales changing color with each reading, shifting from green to angry red. This is blackmail, he hissed, throwing the datapad across the chamber. They demand full reinstatement with veto power. They want a public apology from me personally. They want 20% of our resources for the next decade. And they want the power to prevent any species from ever being silenced again. They also want our promise to never again punish a species for being different, Tassara added quietly. They call it the Silent Protection Act. It is extortion. Vethric roared. We will not bend to human threats. I refuse to apologize for doing what was necessary to protect the Federation. Elder Vane of the Luminar floated forward, his energy form pulsing with agitation. Perhaps we should consider their terms. The Reavers grow stronger each day. Yesterday they attacked Nethera. My people are dying. Your people demanded humanity be punished, Vethric reminded him coldly. Now you beg for their help? Have you no pride? Pride will not save my people from extinction, Vane replied. The Reavers have weapons that destabilize our energy forms. Thousands of Luminar have already died. Without help, we will all perish. The debate raged for hours. Some species supported Vethric, arguing that accepting human terms would set a dangerous precedent. Others sided with Tassara, pointing out that pride was worthless if they were all dead. Meanwhile, reports kept coming in. The Reavers had captured another world. Another 1 million refugees were fleeing toward the inner systems. In her observer's seat, Hyejin wrote down every word. She did not smile. She did not gloat. She simply recorded the council tearing itself apart while human ships waited at the borders, watching the galaxy burn. On the third day of debate, a message arrived that changed everything. The Reavers had broken through the final defensive line. They were now less than 72 hours from the core worlds, the ancient heart of the Federation where the oldest civilizations made their homes. If those worlds fell, the Federation would effectively cease to exist. Tassara stood before the council. We are out of time. I call for a vote. Do we accept humanity's terms, yes or no? Vethric wanted to argue more, but he could see the fear in the eyes of the other counselors. These were not warriors. They were diplomats and scholars who had lived in peace for centuries. They had never faced real war before. The Reavers had shattered their illusion of safety. The vote was called. One by one, the species voted yes. Even those who hated the idea knew they had no choice. When it was Vethric's turn, he sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Yes, but know that I do this under protest. History will judge whether we made the right choice. The final count was unanimous. 47 species voted to accept humanity's terms. The silencing was officially revoked. Hyejin stood and spoke for the first time in 5 years. Her voice was steady and clear. The terms are accepted. Ambassador Daehyun will return to the council within 24 hours. The Ghost Fleet will deploy immediately. She walked out of the chamber, leaving silence behind her. The counselors looked at each other, wondering what they had just unleashed. True to her word, Ambassador Daehyun arrived the next day. He walked into the council chamber like he had never left, carrying himself with quiet dignity. The other counselors watched him nervously. This was not the same man who had walked out 5 years ago. This man had built an empire in silence. Vethric stood before the assembly, holding a prepared statement. His hands shook slightly as he began to read. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer humanity a formal apology. We were wrong to silence your species. We acted out of fear and prejudice. We failed to see your value to the Federation. We ask for your forgiveness and your help in this crisis. Each word seemed to cause him physical pain. When he finished, he looked at Daehyun with barely concealed hatred. Daehyun accepted the apology with a simple nod. Thank you, High Counselor. Now let us discuss how to save your civilization. He activated a holographic display. Our intelligence network has been monitoring the Reavers for the past 3 years. We know their tactics, their weaknesses, and most importantly, their motivation. They are not conquerors. They are refugees. The display showed the Reaver home system. A massive black hole was slowly consuming their star. Their sun is dying. They have no choice but to find new worlds. They fight with desperation because they have nothing to lose. So what do you propose? Tassara asked. We cannot give them our worlds. We do not have to, Daehyun said. We can offer them something better. New worlds that are currently uninhabitable. Humanity has developed terraforming technology that can make dead planets livable in decades instead of centuries. We can give the Reavers what they need without taking from the Federation. Vethric laughed bitterly. And they will simply stop attacking because we ask nicely? No, Daehyun said quietly. First we must stop them. The Ghost Fleet will engage the Reaver forces and drive them back. Once we have demonstrated our strength, then we negotiate from a position of power. But the end goal is not extermination. It is peace. You would help the same species that is destroying us? Another counselor asked in disbelief. Daehyun looked around the chamber. 5 years ago you cast us out because you thought we were dangerous. You were right. We are dangerous. But we are also better than you gave us credit for. We could let the Reavers destroy you as punishment for what you did to us. Instead, we choose to save both you and them. That is what humanity is. We do not just fight. We find solutions. Outside the council station, space began to shimmer. One by one, human ships appeared, decloaking from their quantum phase. There were hundreds of them, sleek and deadly, arranged in perfect formation. The Ghost Fleet had arrived. Admiral Mireille stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the sensor displays. All ships report ready, her tactical officer announced. Good, Mireille said. Send a message to the Reaver Fleet. Tell them that if they continue their advance, they will face humanity. And humanity fights differently than the Council does. The Reaver commander Thackrell received the message aboard his flagship. He was a massive being, covered in thick armor plates with 3 arms and multiple eyes. He had fought the Council forces for months and found them weak and predictable, but these humans were unknown. His scouts had reported strange ships that appeared and disappeared without warning. "Ignore the message," he ordered. "Humans are just another soft species. We will crush them like the others." His fleet continued forward, 10,000 ships strong, ready to sweep aside any opposition. They entered the system where the Ghost Fleet waited. The battle was about to begin. In the council chamber, the councilors watched the tactical displays with growing horror and fascination. They had spent 5 years wondering what humanity had built in their isolation. Now they would see the answer. The Reaver fleet approached the human position. The Ghost Fleet did not move. They simply waited, silent and still. Then at the last possible moment, Admiral Mireille gave a single order. "Show them what silence built." The Ghost Fleet moved, not forward into battle, but sideways, phasing partially out of normal space. To the Reavers, it looked like the human ships simply vanished. Then they reappeared, but not where they had been. They materialized inside the Reaver formation, surrounded by enemy ships, and they opened fire. The Helios lance weapons, powered by solar energy collected through the helix, tore through Reaver shields like they did not exist. Quantum torpedoes phased through armor and detonated inside ships, destroying them from within. Human ships moved with impossible speed and precision, coordinated by artificial intelligence that made Council computers look primitive. In 15 minutes, 2,000 Reaver ships were destroyed. The survivors fled in panic, unable to comprehend what had just happened. They had never faced an enemy like this. The Council forces they had been fighting were slow and defensive. These humans were fast and aggressive, striking from impossible angles with weapons that defied understanding. Thakral watched his fleet disintegrate around him. He tried to regroup to organize a counterattack, but it was useless. The human ships were everywhere and nowhere, impossible to track or target. His pride as a warrior demanded he fight to the death, but his responsibility to his people demanded he survive. "Retreat," he ordered, the word like poison in his mouth. "All ships fall back to the outer systems." The Ghost Fleet did not pursue. They simply watched the Reavers run, their message delivered. In the council chamber, absolute silence reigned. The councilors stared at the displays, unable to speak. They had just witnessed the most one-sided battle in galactic history. Finally, Tassara found her voice. "You could have destroyed them all." Daehyun nodded. "Yes, but we chose not to. Because the goal is not to prove we can kill. The goal is to prove we can choose mercy even when we have the power to destroy. Now the Reavers know they cannot win. Now we can talk." Vethric looked at the human ambassador with new eyes, not with hatred anymore, but with something closer to fear and respect. "What have we done?" he whispered. "What have we created by forcing you into silence?" Daehyun's expression was unreadable. "You gave us time. Time to think. Time to build." After the battle, humanity sent a message to the Reaver Command. It was simple and direct. "We can destroy you, but we would rather help you. Meet us to discuss terms." Thakral did not trust the message at first. In his experience, the strong always crushed the weak. Why would these humans offer help after defeating his fleet so easily? It had to be a trap. But his advisors convinced him to at least listen. They had nothing left to lose. The meeting took place on a neutral station, with both human and Reaver ships keeping their distance. Thakral entered the conference room with 2 guards, expecting treachery. Instead, he found Ambassador Daehyun sitting alone at a table with 2 chairs. "Please sit," Daehyun said, gesturing to the empty chair. Thakral sat warily, his multiple eyes scanning the room for hidden weapons or soldiers. There were none. "Why am I here, human?" "Because you are desperate," Daehyun said bluntly. "Your home system is dying. You need new worlds for your people. That is why you invaded Council space. Not because you are evil, but because you are afraid." Thakral's claws dug into the table. "You know nothing of our pain. We watched our son die. We watched our children starve. The Council has thousands of worlds. They could have helped us. Instead, they closed their borders and told us to die quietly." "I understand more than you think," Daehyun said softly. 5 years ago, the Council cast my people out. They called us dangerous. They said we did not belong. They wanted us to disappear. We know what it feels like to be rejected by those with power. Thockrell studied the human carefully. Then why do you fight for them now? Because revenge solves nothing, Daehyun replied. We could have let the council burn. We could have watched you destroy them and felt satisfied. But that would not save your people or ours. So instead we offer you a choice. Continue fighting a war you cannot win or accept our help and build a new future for your species. He activated a holographic display showing several uninhabited star systems. These worlds are currently dead. No atmosphere, no water, no life. But humanity has technology to change that. We can terraform these planets in 30 years. Give your people new homes without taking from the Federation. Thockrell looked at the images with hungry eyes. Worlds for his people. Real worlds, not stolen scraps. What is the cost? Peace, Daehyun said simply. Stop attacking council worlds. Return the territories you have taken. Help us rebuild what was destroyed in this war. In exchange, we will give you what you need to survive. My people have killed thousands of yours, Thockrell said slowly. We destroyed your ships. We would have killed you all if we could. Why would you help us after that? Daehyun met his eyes steadily. Because we judge people by what they do when given a chance, not by what they do when they have no choice. You fought because you were desperate. We understand desperation. Now we offer you another path. Thockrell was silent for a long moment. No species had ever offered his people mercy before. They had always been seen as monsters, as raiders, as less than civilized. But this human looked at him without hatred or fear. Just calm understanding. I will discuss this with my council, Thockrell said finally. But I make no promises. That is all I ask, Daehyun replied. While diplomacy proceeded, the Ghost Fleet continued its mission. They did not attack the retreating Reavers. Instead, they positioned themselves between the Reaver forces and the Council worlds, creating an impenetrable barrier. Any Reaver ship that tried to pass was escorted back, firmly, but without violence. Admiral Mireille used this time to coordinate with Council forces. It was awkward at first. The Council military commanders had spent decades developing their own tactics and strategies. They were not used to taking orders from humans. But after witnessing what the Ghost Fleet could do, they were willing to learn. Commander Seokjin's intelligence network proved invaluable. His agents provided real-time information about Reaver movements, supply lines, and strategic priorities. The Council had been fighting blind, not understanding their enemy. Now they could see the full picture. On Nethera, the Luminar homeworld, Dr. Jiwon arrived with a team of scientists and engineers. The Reavers had deployed quantum disruptors across the planet, weapons specifically designed to destabilize energy-based life forms. Thousands of Luminar were dying every day, their light forms flickering and fading like dying stars. Elder Vane greeted them weakly, his own energy form dim and unstable. You came, he said with surprise. Even after my people demanded your punishment, you came to save us. Dr. Jiwon began setting up quantum stabilizers around the affected areas. We came because it is the right thing to do. Your people made a mistake. So did mine. But mistakes do not mean we should let each other die. The stabilizers worked. Slowly, the dying Luminar began to recover. Their light grew brighter and more stable. Vane watched in amazement as his people were pulled back from the edge of extinction by the very species they had condemned. How can we ever repay this debt? He asked. By being better, Dr. Jiwon said simply. By remembering that every species deserves a chance. By never again demanding someone be silenced because they are different. Meanwhile, Thockrell returned to his people with humanity's offer. His council was divided. Some saw it as weakness, a trap waiting to be sprung. Others saw it as their only hope for survival. The debate raged for days until Thockrell made his decision. We accept, he announced. We will make peace with the council. We will work with humanity to build new worlds for our people, and we will prove that Reavers are more than monsters. The news spread quickly through the galaxy. The war was over. Not through annihilation, but through understanding. It was unprecedented. The council species, who had spent months fighting the Reavers with hatred, now had to accept them as potential allies. Many were uncomfortable with this, but they could not deny that humanity's approach had worked where violence had failed. A formal ceremony was held in the council chamber. Thakral knelt before the assembly, a gesture of submission that went against every warrior instinct in his body. "My people have caused great harm," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "We killed your civilians, we destroyed your worlds. We did this out of desperation, but that does not excuse our actions. We ask for forgiveness, knowing we do not deserve it." Ambassador Daehyun stepped forward. "Forgiveness is not earned in a day. It is built through years of trust and cooperation. But today, we begin that journey. The Reavers will have their new worlds. In exchange, they will help protect the Federation from future threats. What better guardians than those who understand what it means to fight for survival?" The council voted to accept the peace terms. It was not unanimous. Some species still harbored deep resentment toward the Reavers, but the majority recognized that humanity had shown them a better way forward. High Counselor Vethric approached Daehyun after the ceremony. The old Saurian looked tired and defeated. "You have won," he said quietly. "You have everything you demanded. Are you satisfied?" "This was never about winning," Daehyun replied. "It was about teaching the galaxy that strength is not just military power. It is the willingness to show mercy when you could choose vengeance, to build when you could destroy, to forgive when you have every right to hate." Vethric studied him for a long moment. "You have humbled me, human. I thought I was protecting the Federation by silencing your species. Instead, I nearly destroyed it through my pride. I ask your permission to resign my position." "Permission denied," Daehyun said, surprising him. "The Federation needs leaders who have learned from their mistakes, not ones who run from them. You wanted us silenced because you feared what we might become. Now you see what we became. Learn from this. Help others learn from this." Vethric bowed his head. "You show me more mercy than I showed you." "That is the point," Daehyun said softly. "Someone has to break the cycle." In the weeks that followed, the reconstruction began. Human engineers worked alongside council scientists to repair damaged worlds. Reaver warriors joined Federation patrol forces, their aggressive nature now channeled toward protecting instead of destroying. The Luminar used their energy manipulation abilities to help with the terraforming projects. It was not perfect. There were tensions and conflicts. Some species could not forget what the Reavers had done. Some humans still resented the Council for the silencing. But slowly, carefully, bridges were built between old enemies. Admiral Mirai stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, watching the construction of a new space station. It would serve as a joint human-Reaver military base, a symbol of the new cooperation. Captain Jamin joined her, looking out at the construction crews working side by side. "Did you ever imagine this, Admiral?" he asked. "When we were building the Ghost Fleet in secret, did you think we would end up here?" Mirai smiled slightly. "I hoped for it, but I did not dare believe it was possible. The galaxy can be cruel and stupid, but it can also learn. That is what we proved. Not that humans are superior, but that everyone can change if given the chance." "The Council is voting next week on the Silent Protection Act," Jamin said. "Do you think it will pass?" "It will pass," Mirai said confidently. They learned their lesson. No species will ever be silenced again without every other species agreeing. It will be our legacy. Not the weapons we built or the battles we won, but the laws we changed to protect the powerless. 20 years passed since the silencing was revoked. The galaxy was transformed in ways that nobody could have predicted. The young people who had grown up during those years knew only the new Federation, one where humans, Reavers, and all other species worked together as equals. Ambassador Daehyun was now Chancellor of Unified Defense, the highest military position in the Federation. He had served 3 terms, longer than anyone else in history, but today was his last day. He had decided to retire, to make room for younger leaders who could guide the Federation into its future. He stood before the Council one final time, preparing to give his farewell address. The chamber was full. Representatives from all 47 original species were present, along with the Reavers, who had been granted full membership 5 years earlier. Even the youngest species, those who had joined after humanity's example had changed the Federation's acceptance policies, sat in the upper galleries. When I first walked out of this chamber 20 years ago, Daehyun began, I was angry, not just at being silenced, but at what it represented. It showed that the Federation feared difference more than it valued justice. That comfort was more important than fairness. But something good came from that darkness. My people learned that we did not need permission to be strong. We did not need approval to innovate. We learned to believe in ourselves even when others did not believe in us. And perhaps most importantly, we learned that true strength is not about power. It is about what you do with that power once you have it. He paused, looking around the chamber at faces both familiar and new. We could have used our technology to conquer. We could have made the Council pay for every slight, every insult, every moment of isolation. Some humans wanted exactly that. But we chose a different path. We chose to save instead of destroy, to build instead of tear down, to forgive instead of holding grudges. That choice made us stronger than any weapon ever could. It proved that humanity belongs among the stars not because we can fight, but because we know when not to fight. Today I step down knowing that the Federation is in good hands. Not just human hands, but the hands of all species working together. The chamber erupted in applause. Even old Vethric, now retired but attending as an honored guest, stood and clapped his clawed hands together. The sound echoed through the hall for several minutes before finally dying down. After the ceremony, Daehyun walked through the station's observation deck. Admiral Mireille was waiting for him there. She too had retired from active military service, though she still advised the Federation fleet on strategic matters. A good speech, she said, standing beside him as they looked out at the stars. Thank you. I meant every word. He was quiet for a moment, then added, Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had chosen differently? If we had used the Ghost Fleet to take revenge? Mireille considered the question. We would have won the war, but we would have lost ourselves. Revenge might feel satisfying in the moment, but it leaves nothing behind except emptiness and regret. We built something better, something lasting. The galaxy is better because of what we did, Daehyun agreed. But I think we are better too. We learned that being right is not enough. You also have to be wise. Elsewhere in the Federation, the changes that began with humanity's return continued to reshape galactic civilization. Dr. Jiwan's Joint Research Institute with the Luminar had made breakthrough after breakthrough. They had unlocked the secrets of consciousness transfer, allowing injured beings to recover from wounds that would have been fatal. They had developed new forms of energy generation that made the helix look primitive. Most importantly, they had proven that different species working together could achieve more than any species working alone. Commander Seokjin's intelligence network had evolved into something entirely new. It was no longer secret. Instead, it had become the Federation Intelligence Coordination Bureau, a transparent organization that shared information freely among member species. The old way of hoarding intelligence had given way to a new philosophy. Knowledge shared is power multiplied. The Reaver integration had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. Their warrior culture, once seen as primitive and brutal, now provided the Federation with some of its best defenders. Young Reavers joined mixed-species military units, learning discipline and strategy while teaching their comrades about courage and determination. Thakral himself had become a respected voice in the Council, arguing passionately for policies that protected refugees and displaced populations. We were monsters because we had no choice, he once told the Council. You gave us a choice. You gave us a chance. Now we will spend the rest of our existence proving we deserve that chance. The terraformed worlds that humanity had promised were now thriving. The first generation of Reavers born on these new planets had never known the desperation of their parents. They grew up in peace, learning to build instead of raid. Some even chose to study under human scientists, fascinated by the technology that had given them this new life. High Counselor Vethric spent his retirement working with refugee populations, helping them resettle and integrate into Federation society. It was hard work, often thankless, and many Saurians thought he had lost his mind. But Vethric persisted. Every family he helped was a small act of atonement for his role in the silencing. One day, a young human woman approached him at a resettlement center. Her name was Yunji, and she wore the uniform of the Federation fleet. Counselor Vethric? She asked hesitantly. Just Vethric now, he corrected gently. I am no longer a counselor. My grandmother told me about you, Yunji said. She was Ambassador Hijin's assistant during the silencing. She said you voted to cast humanity out. Vethric's scales darkened with shame. Yes, I did. It is the greatest regret of my life. She also said, Yunji continued, that you have spent 20 years trying to make up for it, that you work harder than anyone else to help those in need. She wanted me to tell you something if I ever met you. What is that? Vethric asked, bracing himself for words of hatred or condemnation. She said to tell you that you are forgiven, that the work you do now matters more than the mistakes you made then, and that humanity does not forget its friends even if they started as enemies. Vethric felt something break inside him, a weight he had carried for 2 decades, suddenly lifting. Thank you, he whispered. Please thank your grandmother for me, Yunji smiled. Actually, I am here because I am being assigned to the Joint Patrol Forces. I will be serving under Commander Thakral. My grandmother thought you might want to know that a human and a Reaver will be working together to protect the Federation you helped rebuild. Vethric looked at this young human, who had every reason to hate him but instead brought him forgiveness and hope. The galaxy has changed, he said softly, and perhaps I have changed with it. Far from the council chamber on a memorial station orbiting Earth, a crystal sphere rotated slowly in space. Inside were the names of everyone who had died during the crisis, human and alien alike. It was visited by millions every year, a reminder of the cost of conflict and the value of peace. One visitor was Elder Vane of the Luminar. His energy form had fully recovered, thanks to Dr. G1's quantum stabilizers. He floated before the memorial reading name after name. So many of his people were listed here, but also listed were the names of the human scientists who had died saving them, the Reaver warriors who had perished learning to fight alongside their former enemies, and the council soldiers who had fallen protecting innocents. A human guide approached him. Can I help you find someone? I am looking for the name of Dr. G1's assistant, Vane said. A young man named Minho. He died stabilizing our quantum disruptors. He sacrificed himself to save my people. The guide helped him find the name. Vane touched the crystal gently, his energy form dimming in grief and gratitude. I demanded humanity be punished, he told the guide. I called them reckless and dangerous. And when my people were dying, they came anyway. This boy died saving people who had condemned his entire species. That is what we do, the guide said simply. We help those in need, even if they do not deserve it, even if they hate us, because that is who we choose to be. Vane understood then what the silencing had really taught humanity. It was not that they could survive alone. It was that they could remain good even when the galaxy turned against them. That was true strength. Back on Earth, in a small house overlooking the ocean, Dae-hyun sat with his family. His children and grandchildren surrounded him, asking questions about the old days, about the silencing and the war that followed. He answered patiently, but he focused more on what came after. The important thing to remember, he told his youngest granddaughter, is that being right is not enough. You also have to be kind. We could have destroyed the council for what they did to us. We would have been justified. But that would have made us no better than those who hurt us. But they were mean to you, the little girl protested. They said you were bad. Yes, they were, Dae-hyun agreed. And it hurt. But we proved them wrong not by destroying them, but by saving them. We showed that their fear was misplaced, that humans could be trusted with power because we knew when not to use it. His granddaughter thought about this. So we won by being nice? Dae-hyun smiled. We won by being wise.